A massive alien ship floats silently above a red planet, its surface filled with cities and life. Inside the ship there is a sense of excitement and nervous energy. Today is an important day too. Very different species are coming together to sign an agreement that has taken decades to prepare. Glimpo, a young and eager diplomat, walks through the hall with his group. This meeting is the biggest moment of his career. For generations, his people, the Xorathians, have been working towards this partnership. It's more than just a trade deal. It's a chance to stand side by side with a species that has amazed and confused them for years. But Glimpo is nervous. The humans are unlike anything his people have encountered. Their technology is complex, and their approach to solving problems feels almost strange. Some Xorathians think humans make things too complicated. Others, Glimpo, wonder if there is a reason behind their methods. As the group approaches the meeting room, one of the older delegates mutters under his breath, "It took them 8 plocs to change their ship to fit us. 8 plocs for a simple retrofit." Glimpo responds politely, "Maybe their ships are built differently than ours, Elder. It could be harder than it looks." The Elder huffs but doesn't reply. The doors slide open, and the group steps inside. The humans are already waiting. The Xorathian delegation freezes for a moment. Seeing humans in holograms is one thing. Standing in front of them is something else entirely. The human diplomat is calm, friendly, and tall. Almost twice as tall as Glimpo and his companions. "Welcome," the human says, smiling warmly. "I hope your trip was comfortable." For a moment, nobody speaks. The Xorathians, caught off guard by the human size, exchange quick glances. Glimpo clears his throat and steps forward. "It is an honor to be here," he says, trying to sound confident. "We hope to finish today what we started long ago." The human nods. "And we're ready to make that happen. Let's begin." As the humans and Xorathians take their seats, Glimpo glances out the large window behind the human diplomat. From this high up, he can see his home planet glowing in shades of red and gold. He feels a surge of pride. His people have come so far. They are finally standing on equal footing with the species they have admired for so long. But what Glimpo doesn't know is that this meeting is about to take an unexpected turn. The humans are about to reveal something about themselves that will completely change how the Xorathians see them and how they see themselves. The Xorathian delegation steps out of their transport ship and into the docking bay of the human vessel. The air is crisp, with a faint hum of machinery in the background. Glimpo looks around, taking in the vastness of the bay. The walls stretch so high and wide that the space feels more like a city than a room. Glimpo's ears twitch nervously. The design of the human ship is nothing like what he's used to. It's not sleek or streamlined like Xorathian technology. Instead, it's layered with pipes, panels, and what seems to be an unnecessary amount of reinforcement. It feels overbuilt but sturdy, as if designed to withstand anything. Why would they need so many layers of plating? Glimpo wonders quietly. One of the engineers in the group answers in a whisper, "Humans build things differently. They over-prepare. Maybe they think the universe is more dangerous than it really is." The elder delegate chuckles, shaking his head. "Overbuilt or not, it's taken them far too long to prepare for us. 8 plocs to retrofit a ship for a meeting. It's ridiculous." As they walk through the docking bay, a human guide appears to escort them. The guide is friendly, speaking slowly and clearly, as though trying to make sure every word is understood. "Welcome to the Pathfinder," the guide says. "This way, please." The Xorathians follow, still glancing around at their surroundings. The scale of everything is overwhelming. Doors are much larger than they're used to. The ceilings are high, and even the hallways are wide enough to fit vehicles. The elder mutters, "It's as if they built this place for giants." Glimpo tries to stay focused. "Maybe their size demands it, Elder." As they walk, the group notices various human crew members. They are all tall, calm, and purposeful. Each one wears a uniform that seems simple compared to the decorative attire of the Xorathians, but there's an air of confidence about them. Glimpo can't help but feel literally and figuratively. Finally, they arrive at the meeting room. The doors slide open with a soft hiss, revealing a spacious room with a long table in the center. The human diplomat stands as they enter. He is taller than any human they've seen so far. His posture is relaxed, but his presence is commanding. The Xorathians can feel the power and age of his species just by looking at him. "Welcome, delegates," the human says, smiling. "We've prepared everything to ensure your comfort. Please, have a seat. The Xorathians step cautiously into the room. The elder delegate pauses, looking up at the human diplomat. The elder's voice is quieter now, almost respectful. You're taller than we expected. The human chuckles softly. I've heard that before. We might look a bit different in person compared to your holograms. The Xorathians settle into their seats, their small forms contrasting sharply with the large chairs made for humans. Glimpo notices subtle adjustments in the room's smaller drinking vessels, lower table saw designed to accommodate his people. For a moment he feels grateful for the effort, even if it did take 8 blocks to make these changes. The human diplomat takes his seat at the head of the table. He folds his hands together and leans forward slightly, his expression warm but focused. I hope your trip was smooth, he says. The elder nods. It was acceptable. Your technology is impressive, even if it's unconventional. We've always done things our way. The human replies with a small smile. Shall we begin? Before they can start, Glimpo can't help but glance out the large window behind the diplomat. The view is breathtaking. The planet below, their homeworld, glows with lights from its cities and the warm red hue of its atmosphere. Glimpo's chest swells with pride and hope. For so long, their planet was isolated, but now they're finally standing alongside a species that has seen much more of the galaxy. It's beautiful, isn't it? The human diplomat says, noticing Glimpo's gaze. Glimpo nods. Yes, it's strange to think that soon this view will become normal for many of my people. The human's expression softens. I remember the first time I saw it from orbit. It's a sight you never forget. Glimpo tilts his head in confusion. You remember? The human nods, as if it's the most natural thing in the world. Of course, I was part of the crew that first surveyed this planet. Glimpo blinks, his ears twitching in surprise. But that was nearly 100 blocks ago. The room falls silent. The elder delegate and the others turn to look at the human, their faces a mix of confusion and disbelief. The human diplomat seems momentarily puzzled, then smiles apologetically. I think there's been a misunderstanding, he says. Our units of time might not match. Let's clarify that as we proceed. The tension in the room eases slightly, but Glimpo can't shake the feeling that this conversation has just taken a very unexpected turn. The Xorathian delegation settles into their seats, still slightly uneasy in the oversized chairs. The human diplomat taps on a data slate, and with a soft buzz, holographic screens appear in front of each delegate. These screens display the details of the trade agreement, the culmination of decades of back-and-forth discussions. Here is the final draft of our agreement, the human says. We've included all the adjustments your delegation requested. The elder delegate wastes no time. Finally, it feels like it's taken entire lifetimes to reach this moment. The human smiles patiently. I understand. We wanted to ensure every detail was correct. The elder huffs but doesn't argue. The delegates begin reviewing the document on their screens. Glimpo scans the terms, his heart racing with excitement. Everything seems perfect: fair trade terms, mutual technological exchanges, and agreements on resource sharing. It's the deal his people have been waiting for. As the Xorathians read, the human diplomat leans back in his chair, watching them calmly. After a few moments, Glimpo notices something unusual in the document. He squints at a section near the bottom, where a series of numbers are listed. Excuse me, Glimpo says, looking up. What do these numbers represent? The human raises an eyebrow. Those are the dates. Dates? Glimpo tilts his head, confused. I don't understand. Are these human dates? Yes, the diplomat replies. They indicate when each stage of the agreement was finalized. Glimpo frowns, trying to make sense of it. But the progression seems strange. Do humans measure time differently from us? The human nods. It seems likely. We've never directly compared our calendars before, have we? The elder delegate leans forward, his voice sharp. Explain. How do humans measure time? The human diplomat looks thoughtful for a moment, then taps on his data slate. Our time is measured in years. 1 year is the time it takes our planet to complete a full orbit around our sun. The Xorathians glance at each other, their expressions confused. Glimpo's data slate buzzes softly, and he glances at the translation update. The word year is roughly equivalent to 12 of their blocks. Glimpo's ears twitch as he does the math in his head. His heart skips a beat. Wait, are you saying one of your years is equal to 12 of our blocks? The human diplomat nods. That seems to be the case. The room falls silent. The Xorathian delegates exchange wide-eyed looks. Glimpo swallows hard, feeling a strange mix of awe and disbelief. But that would mean... Glimpo hesitates, his voice barely a whisper. You said you were part of the crew that first came to our planet. That's correct, the human replies calmly. Glimpo stares at him, but that was nearly 100 blocks ago. The human's expression doesn't change. Yes, that sounds about right. The elder delegate's jaw drops. You mean to tell us you were there? When this all started, you were still alive? The human nods again, his tone casual. Yes, I was quite young then, but I remember it well. The Xorathians are stunned. The elder delegate shakes his head in disbelief. Impossible. No being can live that long. You must be, what, 360 blocks old? The human diplomat smiles faintly. By your measure, yes. But by ours, I'm 30 years old. The room erupts into whispers. The Xorathian delegates struggle to process what they've just heard. Their own species lives fast, with an average lifespan of around 7 human years. The idea of a being living over 300 blocks is beyond anything they've ever imagined. The elder delegate finally speaks, his voice trembling. You are older than some of our nations. The human chuckles softly. Well, when you put it like that, it does sound impressive. Glimpo stares at the human, his mind racing. But how? How can humans live so long? It's just how we're built, the diplomat replies. Our species evolved with a slower metabolism and a longer lifespan. It's normal for us. The elder delegate shakes his head again. Normal? This is not normal. To us, you are like the beings from our myths. Eternal, wise, ancient. The human leans forward slightly, his tone gentle. I promise you, we're not mythical beings. We just experience time differently than you do. To us, your lives must feel incredibly fast. Glimpo nods slowly, beginning to understand. That explains it. Your broadcasts, they always seem so rushed to us. We thought it was a translation error, but now it makes sense. You see our lives as fleeting, don't you? The human diplomat hesitates, choosing his words carefully. Not fleeting, just different. Your people accomplish so much in such a short time. It's remarkable, really. The elder delegate seems to calm slightly, his expression thoughtful. Perhaps we have more to learn from each other than we realized. The human nods. That's why we're here. To share, to collaborate, and to build a future together. The tension in the room begins to ease. Glimpo looks at the human with a newfound sense of respect and a touch of awe. He realizes that humans are not just another species. They are something extraordinary, something almost beyond comprehension. As the Xorathian delegates place their digital stamps on the agreement, the human diplomat smiles. With this, our partnership begins. Let's celebrate this milestone together. The room buzzes with quiet excitement. The signing is complete, but Glimpo can't shake the feeling that today's revelation is just the beginning. There is so much more to learn about these humans, these beings who live at a pace that feels almost timeless. The Xorathian delegates sit quietly, still trying to process what they've just learned. Humans, these towering beings before them, live hundreds of blocks longer than entire generations of Xorathians. For a moment, the room is filled with silence, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. Glimpo finally speaks, his voice hesitant but curious. If I may ask, how does your species live so long? What allows you to endure for so many blocks? The human diplomat smiles, leaning back slightly in his chair. It's a combination of things. Our biology, our environment, and of course our technology. Let me explain. The Xorathians lean forward, their eyes fixed on the human. Even the elder, who had been skeptical moments ago, listens intently. First, the human begins. It starts with how we evolved. Humans developed on a planet with a steady climate and plenty of challenges. Over time, our bodies adapted to heal injuries, fight off diseases, and last for many years. Compared to other creatures on our world, we're not the fastest or the strongest, but we're resilient. The elder nods slowly. Resilient? Yes, I've heard that word used to describe your species before. The human chuckles. It's true. Our ancestors survived harsh winters, predators, and food shortages. They had to think ahead, plan, and adapt to survive. That's why we value preparation and complexity in everything we do and in how we build our ships. Glimpo glances around the room, suddenly seeing the ship in a new light. What once seemed unnecessarily complicated now feels like a reflection of humanity's cautious nature. But it's not just biology, the human continues. We also rely heavily on technology. Over time, we've learned how to treat diseases, repair injuries, and even slow the effects of aging. My grandmother, for example, is over 90 years old. She's still alive, though she's, well, more machine than human at this point. Glimpo tilts his head. More machine? Yes, the human says, his tone light but thoughtful. We've developed ways to replace failing parts of our bodies with machines. Artificial organs, cybernetic limbs, even enhancements for our brains. It's not uncommon for humans to live well over 100 years, especially with access to advanced medical care. The elder delegate's ears twitch. To us, that sounds like something out of a myth, a being that can replace its body parts to extend its life. It's hard to imagine. The human nods. I understand, but for us it's normal. It's how we've managed to live long enough to see projects like this building alliances across the star scum to life. Glimpo's mind races. He thinks back to his own people, their short lives filled with urgency and rapid change. In comparison, humans seem almost timeless, like they've had the luxury of patience for generations. The human diplomat's tone shifts slightly, becoming more reflective. Our long lives also shape how we see the world. We think in terms of decades, even centuries. When we first arrived at your planet, we didn't rush to make contact. We observed, we studied, we wanted to make sure we wouldn't harm your people or disrupt your way of life. The elder furrows his brow. That's why it took you so long to approach us? The human nods. Exactly. We've learned from our own history. Rushing into things often leads to mistakes. When we first started exploring space, we made errors that cost us dearly. So, when we found your world, we decided to take it slow. We worked behind the scenes developing vaccines to protect you from our microbes, learning your languages, and studying your culture. It took time, but we wanted to get it right. Glimpo feels a pang of admiration. That's remarkable. You cared about protecting us even before we met. The human smile is warm. Of course, we saw potential in your people. You may live shorter lives, but you accomplished so much in that time. Your creativity, your determination, it's inspiring. We wanted to make sure we approached you with respect. The elder delegate strokes his chin thoughtfully. It seems your long lives give you a different perspective. You see things on a much larger scale. That's true, the human replies, but it's not always an advantage. Sometimes we can be slow to act. We hesitate, waiting for the perfect moment, while others like your people seize opportunities quickly. That's something we've come to admire about you. Glimpo can't help but feel a sense of pride. His people, though short-lived, are being recognized by a species as remarkable as the humans. It's a humbling yet uplifting realization. The human diplomat continues, his voice steady. Our history is full of examples of long-term thinking. When we faced global challenges like climate change or resource shortages, we didn't solve them overnight. It took generations of effort. But we persevered because we believed the future was worth fighting for. That's why we're here today, working with you. Together, I believe we can achieve incredible things. The room is silent for a moment, as the Xorathians absorb the human's words. Glimpo looks out the window again, his gaze fixed on the glowing surface of his home planet. He thinks about what the human said about resilience, patience, and the power of working together. Finally, Glimpo speaks, his voice filled with quiet determination. Thank you for sharing your story. I think we have much to learn from each other, and I hope this agreement is just the beginning of a long and fruitful partnership. The human diplomat nods. As do I. Together, we can accomplish far more than we ever could alone. As the conversation winds down, the tension in the room gives way to a sense of mutual respect. The Xorathians see humans not as strange or overly complicated beings, but as wise and thoughtful allies. And for the humans, this moment marks the start of a new chapter, where two very different species come together to build a brighter future. The room has grown quieter now. The weight of the revelations about humanity lingers in the air. The Xorathian delegates sit back in their chairs, their thoughts visibly racing. For generations they had seen themselves as equals, maybe even superior in certain ways. But now they realize the truth. Humans are far older, wiser, and more resilient than they could have ever imagined. Glimpo stares out the large window behind the human diplomat. The view of his home planet, glowing softly against the darkness of space, fills him with a mix of pride and humility. His people had come so far, yet he couldn't help but wonder how fleeting their achievements must seem to a species like the humans. The elder delegate breaks the silence, his voice quieter than before. "Human, if you live so long, you must have witnessed countless changes in your world. Do you ever grow tired of it all?" "Close." The human diplomat smiles gently. "Sometimes. But the beauty of our lives is that no matter how much time we have, there's always more to learn, more to experience. Each new generation brings fresh ideas, new perspectives. It keeps us moving forward." The elder nods slowly, his usual gruffness softened. "Your perspective is different from ours. For my people, life is short. We rush to accomplish as much as we can before it's over. There's no time to reflect, no time to wait. And that's what makes your species remarkable," the human replies. "You live with urgency. You achieve so much in such a short time. In some ways, I envy that." Glimpo looks at the human, surprised. "You envy us? But your species is capable of so much more. You have time to plan, to build, to live." The human leans forward, his expression thoughtful. "That's true. But your urgency gives you a kind of energy that we don't always have. Your people innovate quickly, adapt to challenges, and embrace change in ways that we find inspiring. In the time it takes us to decide on a course of action, your people have already acted and succeeded." The elder chuckles softly. "Perhaps there is something we can teach each other after all." As the conversation continues, Glimpo begins to see the humans in a new light. They aren't just giants with long lives and complex machines. They are thoughtful, deliberate, and deeply empathetic. They've chosen to use their time to help others, to build connections across the stars. But there's another realization dawning on Glimpoon that humbles him even more. Humans have been patient with his people. They've waited for decades, carefully crafting this partnership, never once rushing or forcing their agenda. It's a level of respect that Glimpo hadn't fully appreciated until now. "Human," Glimpo says, his voice steady, "when you first found our planet, why did you wait so long to make contact? You could have easily taken control, yet you didn't. Why?" "Close." The human diplomat's smile fades slightly, replaced by a look of quiet seriousness. "Because we've learned from our past. When humans first began exploring space, we didn't always make the best choices. We made mistakes sometimes at the expense of others. We promised ourselves that we wouldn't repeat those mistakes with your people. You deserved the chance to grow and thrive on your own terms." Glimpo feels a lump in his throat. The humility and wisdom in the human's words are almost overwhelming. He glances at the elder delegate, who seems equally moved. The elder clears his throat, his tone more respectful than before. "It seems your species values life in a way we've never considered. Perhaps that is the gift of time. You've seen what happens when life is taken for granted." The human nods. "Time teaches us many things, but so does perspective. Working with your people has reminded us of the importance of living in the moment. It's something we sometimes forget." Glimpo's ears twitch as he processes the human's words. For so long, he had thought of humans as strange, distant beings. Now, he sees them as something more: mentors, allies, and maybe even friends. As the delegates rise from their seats to prepare for the celebration, Glimpo takes one last look out the window. The red glow of his planet feels different now, like a symbol of possibility rather than limitation. He turns to the human diplomat, a small smile on his face. "Thank you," Glimpo says, "not just for this agreement, but for the respect you've shown us. It means more than you know." The human returns the smile. "And thank you. Your people remind us of why we do what we do. This partnership is only the beginning." As they step into the celebration hall, the Xorathians feel a sense of hope and purpose. They had come here to finalize a trade deal, but they are leaving with something far greater: a new understanding of what it means to work together across the stars. The celebration hall is filled with a mix of human and Xorathian cuisine, a gesture of unity between the two species. The atmosphere is warm, with quiet conversations and soft laughter echoing through the room. Glimpo holds a small plate of food, his thoughts still racing from everything he's learned today. The human diplomat approaches, holding a glass of a vibrant blue liquid. He smiles down at Glimpo. "How are you feeling about today?" Glimpo hesitates before answering. "It's overwhelming. I never imagined our two species could be so different, yet find so much common ground." The human nods. It's the differences that make this partnership valuable. Together, we'll accomplish things neither of us could have done alone. Glimpo glances around the room. His fellow delegates seem at ease now, talking and even laughing with the humans. The elder delegate, who had been skeptical at first, is deep in conversation with a human engineer, nodding thoughtfully as they exchange ideas. Looking back at the human diplomat, Glimpo feels a deep sense of respect. I hope this agreement marks the start of something truly special for both of our species. The human raises his glass in a toast. To a shared future. Glimpo raises his own glass, clinking it gently against the human's. The sound is soft but carries a sense of promise. As the celebration continues, Glimpo steps toward the large window once more. He looks out at the crimson glow of his home planet, now seeming smaller than before but no less beautiful. For the first time, he feels a connection not just to his own people but to something larger, a shared universe filled with possibilities. The human diplomat joins him by the window. "It's a beautiful world," he says, "and it's only the beginning." Glimpo nods, his voice quiet but firm. "Yes, there's so much we can achieve together. I believe that now." The camera pans out slowly, showing the human ship in orbit above the Xorathian planet. The lights of the ship and the planet shine together in the vast darkness of space. The narrator closes. Today, two species took the first step toward a brighter future, and while their paths may differ, their shared understanding will light the way for generations to come. The screen fades to black, leaving the audience with a sense of hope and wonder.